They paired the ruthless billionaire woman with a poor single dad as a joke. She fell for him instead. They paired the richest, coldest woman in the city with a broke single dad as a cruel joke, expecting her to humiliate him in front of everyone. But that night, while hundreds of powerful people laughed at the poor man standing beside her, the ruthless billionaire noticed something no one else did. He was more concerned about his little daughter eating dinner than about the millions of dollars being offered to him. And for the first time in her life, the woman who could buy anything realized there was something money could never purchase. If you believe kindness can change a life and everyone deserves a second chance, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to SoulTales for more emotional stories about kindness, family, and second chances. Victoria Sterling was known throughout the city as the Ice Queen of Sterling Global. At 38, she had built a billion-dollar empire from nothing after inheriting a failing company from her father and turning it into one of the most powerful corporations in the country. She was intelligent, beautiful, disciplined, and terrifyingly successful. Employees lowered their voices whenever she walked through the office. Executives prepared for weeks before entering her meetings. Victoria never smiled at strangers, never attended charity events unless cameras were present, and never allowed anyone close enough to discover what existed beneath her cold exterior. People said she had no heart. Victoria never corrected them. Across town, Daniel Carter lived in a tiny two-bedroom apartment with his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. Daniel had once worked as a mechanical engineer, but after his wife passed away from a sudden illness 3 years earlier, everything had changed. Medical bills had swallowed his savings, and raising Lily alone had forced him to accept whatever work he could find. During the day, he repaired elevators and industrial machines. At night, he delivered food until his hands were sore and his eyes burned from exhaustion. He owned no luxury car, wore inexpensive clothes, and sometimes counted every dollar before buying groceries. But every evening, no matter how tired he was, Daniel sat beside Lily while she finished her homework. He never complained in front of her. To Lily, her father was not poor. He was the strongest man in the world. Their lives collided at the Sterling Foundation's annual charity gala. Daniel had been hired to repair a malfunctioning service elevator before the event began. While working in the basement, he overheard several wealthy executives laughing about Victoria's personal life. They had been joking about how Victoria rejected every man who approached her because she was too cold to love anyone. One of them suggested that they should find her the most unsuitable man possible and introduce them as a perfect match during the evening's charity game. Someone mentioned Daniel after seeing him carrying tools through the hallway. They laughed harder when they learned he was a poor single father. Daniel had no idea he had become entertainment for the richest people in the room. During the charity auction, Victoria stood beneath the golden chandeliers wearing an elegant black gown while influential businessmen competed for expensive vacations, cars, and artwork. Then the host announced a surprise matchmaking challenge. Victoria immediately knew something was wrong, but before she could leave, Daniel was brought onto the stage. He stood awkwardly in his faded suit, his hands still marked by the grease from the elevator repair. The room erupted in laughter. Someone whispered that the billionaire queen had finally found her prince, only this prince couldn't afford the shoes he was wearing. Victoria looked at Daniel with obvious irritation. Daniel looked at the crowd, then at his phone. There was a message from Lily's babysitter reminding him that his daughter had been feeling sick. Instead of arguing with the wealthy people mocking him, Daniel quietly asked if he could leave because his daughter needed him. That simple sentence silenced Victoria. She had expected arrogance, embarrassment, anger, or desperation. She had expected him to beg for the attention of the wealthy woman standing beside him. Instead, he didn't seem interested in her money at all. He was worried about his little girl. Victoria unexpectedly asked him to stay until the event ended. Daniel hesitated, but when he realized leaving could cost him the repair contract he desperately needed, he stayed. The joke continued throughout the evening. Guests deliberately placed them together for photographs. They teased Daniel about becoming a billionaire's husband. Some even asked him what it felt like to win the lottery. Daniel simply smiled politely. But Victoria began noticing small things. He never touched the expensive food until he had packed something for Lily. He refused a champagne glass because he needed to drive home. When an elderly waiter dropped a tray, Daniel immediately helped him pick everything up while the wealthy guest stepped around the mess. Victoria watched quietly. She had spent years surrounded by people who wanted something from her. Daniel was the first person in a long time who seemed to want nothing. The following morning, Victoria discovered that Daniel had accidentally left a small notebook in the conference room. Inside were drawings Lily had made for her father. One page showed Daniel standing beside his daughter beneath a crooked yellow sun. Underneath, Lily had written, "Daddy says we don't have much, but we have each other." Victoria stared at those words for a long time. Something inside her cracked. She began investigating Daniel, not because she wanted to control him, but because she couldn't understand him. She learned that he had turned down financial help from former colleagues because he didn't want charity. She learned that he had sold his wedding ring to pay Lily's medical expenses. She learned that he worked 3 jobs and still volunteered one evening a week repairing equipment at a community center for free. Victoria had billions. Daniel had almost nothing. Yet somehow, he possessed the one thing she had been unable to find for years, peace. Then Daniel's situation became worse. The company that hired him for maintenance suddenly cancelled his contract after discovering he had been photographed with Victoria. His landlord demanded overdue rent. Lily's school fees were due. Daniel sat alone in his car one rainy night, staring at the steering wheel while trying not to cry. He didn't know how he would tell Lily that they might have to leave their apartment. The next morning, Victoria appeared at his workplace. Daniel assumed she had come to laugh at him again. Instead, she offered him a permanent engineering position at Sterling Global with a salary that could change his life. Daniel refused. Victoria was stunned. He explained that he wanted a job, not pity. He wanted to earn his daughter's future himself. For the first time, Victoria respected someone enough to listen. She offered him the position again, but this time, she offered it because she had seen his engineering work and believed he deserved it. Daniel accepted. Months passed, and the joke that had started at the gala slowly became something neither of them could explain. Victoria began visiting the community center where Daniel volunteered. Lily started leaving little drawings on Victoria's desk. The ruthless billionaire who once terrified entire boardrooms found herself smiling whenever a 7-year-old girl called her Miss Victoria. But just as Victoria began opening her heart, her closest business partner betrayed her. He leaked confidential information and blamed Daniel. Within hours, rumors spread that Daniel had used Victoria to gain access to the company and steal millions. The board demanded that Victoria fire him. Daniel was prepared to resign. Instead, Victoria stood before the entire board and defended him. She revealed the security records proving Daniel had never accessed the information. Then she admitted something that shocked everyone. The man they had once chosen as a joke had become the person she trusted most. Daniel looked at her, speechless. Victoria finally confessed that she had spent years believing love was weakness because everyone she had ever trusted had eventually wanted something from her. Daniel had shown her that love could be quiet. It could be packing leftovers for a child. It could be fixing a broken machine without asking for praise. It could be staying when life became difficult. Daniel didn't care that Victoria was a billionaire. He cared that she had finally learned how to be human. 1 year after the night of the cruel joke, Victoria returned to the same charity gala. This time, Daniel stood beside her wearing a simple black suit, while Lily held Victoria's hand. The same people who had once laughed at Daniel were now watching silently. The host jokingly reminded everyone how the two had first been paired. Victoria smiled. Then she looked at Daniel and Lily. She said nothing about money, status, or business. She simply took Daniel's hand. And Daniel squeezed it gently. The joke had brought them together, but kindness had turned the joke into a family. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes that people are worth more than their wealth, and subscribe to SoulTales. Sometimes the person everyone laughs at is carrying the kind of heart the world desperately needs. And before you leave, comment, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe one act of genuine kindness can change someone's entire life. Because sometimes, God allows people to enter our lives in the most unexpected ways. What begins as a cruel joke can become a second chance, and what looks like an ordinary person can turn out to be the greatest blessing someone ever received.